The sound of weights clanging echoed through the gym, creating a steady rhythm that filled the space. The gym was large, pristine, and clean, with every piece of equipment neatly arranged. The shiny floors reflected the bright lights overhead, and the air smelled faintly of fresh towels mixed with the scent of cologne. Music played softly in the background, and the hum of treadmills was interrupted occasionally by the clang of metal. Despite the peaceful ambience, an undercurrent of tension hung in the air. In the middle of all this, 3 large, burly bodybuilders were clustered together near the bench press area. They were loud, cocky, and full of energy. The gym was their domain, and everyone in it was just background noise to their performance. They strutted around like they owned the place, each flexing their muscles in the mirror, admiring themselves and throwing jokes that were meant to be heard by everyone. They didn't care about working out quietly, they wanted attention, and they loved the power it gave them over others. A black man appearing to be in his early 30s had been quietly working out on the bench press, keeping to himself. He was athletic, focused, and disciplined. He had a calm presence about him, almost as if he wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. Every set he completed was followed by wiping down his station, nodding politely at others and keeping his head low. He didn't need to draw attention to himself, he was just there to work on his fitness. But the 3 bodybuilders weren't having it. They made their way over to the black man, making loud comments to each other. One of them, a big guy with a thick neck and muscles that looked like tree trunks, walked straight up to the bench where the black man had just finished his set. Without asking, he grabbed one of the dumbbells from the rack and tossed it aside. Didn't know this bench was reserved, he sneered, flexing in front of the mirror, expecting everyone to be impressed. Another one of the bodybuilders, a man with bulging arms and a permanent smirk, leaned over the black man's shoulder. His voice was full of mockery as he said, "You sure you're in the right place, bro? Looks like you're out of your league." His words were sharp, aimed to hurt, to make the black man feel small. The third bully, the tallest of the group, blocked the black man's path as he tried to move toward another machine. Nah, the tall one said, grinning. "You gotta earn your spot first." He looked the man up and down as if judging whether he was worthy of even being in the same gym. "Or maybe you should stick to a different gym," he added, his voice dripping with venom. "One where they let anyone in." The gym fell silent for a moment. The 3 bodybuilders laughed loudly, their cruel laughter echoing off the walls. The black man stood still, his jaw tightened, his eyes darting between them. He didn't react right away, choosing to remain calm, but it was clear he was fighting to hold back the sting of humiliation. He knew how it felt to be singled out, to be treated like he didn't belong. His posture remained straight, his movements careful and controlled, as though he were trying to avoid making a scene. Nearby gymgoers glanced over, their eyes flicking to the scene, but no one intervened. Some turned their heads quickly, pretending not to see. A few whispered to each other but didn't do anything to stop the bullies. The trainers at the desk exchanged uneasy looks but chose to stay out of it. No one stepped in to protect the black man. It was as if the gym had decided that it was easier to ignore the situation than to address it. The bullies, sensing the lack of support, grew bolder. They fed off the silence, becoming more aggressive with every passing second. They shoved another weight off the rack, the metallic clang echoing through the gym. They were daring someone to say something to stop them, but no one did. The black man didn't react to their taunts. He simply bent down and quietly picked up the dumbbells they had thrown aside. He wiped them off and placed them back, keeping his eyes low. Every movement he made was controlled, precise, showing his experience in handling difficult situations. He had likely faced worse before, but that didn't make it any easier to bear. The flush of embarrassment rose in his cheeks, and the humiliation of being pushed around in front of so many people was obvious, even if he didn't show it outwardly. Meanwhile, in the corner of the gym, Jason Statham was working out. Jason was dressed in a plain black t-shirt, gray workout pants, and well-worn sneakers. He didn't stand out in the gym. He wasn't there to show off. His movements were smooth and deliberate, with no wasted effort. He was focused, working quietly on his own, never drawing attention to himself. But he noticed what was going on. Jason had been in plenty of gyms before and had seen men like the bullies. He knew how they operated. He could tell it was only a matter of time before they crossed a line, and when they did, he knew what he would do. His eyes narrowed slightly as he continued to lift, watching the situation unfold out of the corner of his eye. The black man, still trying to keep his composure, took a deep breath and bent to pick up the weights. His back was straight, his movements still calm, even though his fists were clenched tightly at his sides. He wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing him lose control. But inside, the tension was building and it was clear he was struggling to hold it in. Then, the biggest bully, the thick-necked man, grabbed the black man by the shirt and shoved him hard against the wall. "You should have stayed home," he growled, grinning widely. His face was filled with arrogance, as though he enjoyed the power he had over the black man. The gym went completely silent. Every eye was on the scene, but still, no one moved to intervene. That was when Jason stood up. Slowly, deliberately, he dropped his towel to the bench and walked toward the group of bullies. He wasn't rushing, but his steps were purposeful. The energy in the gym shifted as people began to realize something was about to happen. Jason didn't shout or make a scene. His calm, controlled presence spoke volumes. The gym had always been a place where people came to show off their strength and discipline, but beneath the shiny surface, there was an unspoken hierarchy. Some people were more powerful, more respected than others, and it showed. People didn't just come to work out, they came to show their worth. And Jason, despite his low-key appearance, was someone who commanded respect without having to say a word. His presence was enough to make the bullies think twice. As he walked toward them, the bullies stopped laughing. They sensed the shift in the room. The tension that had been hanging in the air suddenly felt like it could snap at any moment. Jason didn't need to raise his voice or act aggressively. His quiet confidence was enough to send a message. One of the bullies looked up at Jason, sizing him up. The big guy with the thick neck tried to act tough, but his bravado wavered under Jason's steady gaze. Jason stopped a few feet away from them, his eyes never leaving the bullies. The gym seemed to hold its breath. Jason took a deep breath and spoke, his voice low but clear. "That's enough," he said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. There was no hesitation in his tone, no fear. He wasn't asking for anything, he was stating a fact. The bullies, still a little unsure, exchanged nervous glances. They had expected resistance from the black man, but not from someone like Jason. The big guy who had been doing most of the taunting took a step back, his smirk fading. Jason's calm demeanor, his unshakable presence, was all the black man needed to see. It was as if, in that moment, Jason had taken the weight of the situation off his shoulders. He didn't have to fight back. Jason had it under control. With one last look at the bullies, Jason turned and walked away. The gym, once tense and silent, slowly returned to normal. The black man stood there for a moment, his heart still racing, but the feeling of being alone and powerless had faded. Jason had intervened without needing to make a big show of it. His quiet strength had made all the difference. The gym, once filled with tension, now felt like a place of focus and determination again. The bullies had been put in their place not by force but by the power of presence and control. And in that moment, the black man knew he wasn't alone. The tallest bully stepped closer, blocking the black man's path again. He leaned in with a big grin and said, "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" His friend barked a loud laugh and then said, "Maybe he doesn't know gym rules." The bullies moved in slowly, trapping the man between two big machines. One of them poked a finger into his chest and said, "Are you deaf or are you just dumb?" The man, who was black, took a deep breath, keeping his hands by his sides. He said, "I'm just trying to finish my workout. Let me be." But the bullies just got more confident. One of them grabbed the man's towel from a nearby bench and threw it on the floor like it was garbage. Another gave him a light push backward, laughing, "Maybe you're done now." The crowd in the gym started to feel uncomfortable. People started whispering to each other and exchanging glances. A few people lifted their phones, recording what was happening, but no one stepped forward to stop it. It felt easier for everyone to just watch and do nothing. Jason, who was standing nearby, watched the bullies closely. He didn't move. He just watched them shove the man and make fun of him, but Jason didn't say a word. Then the bullies crossed the line. The second bully reached out and grabbed the black man's arm as he tried to walk away. He spun the man around and pushed him hard into a weight rack. "Don't walk off now. We're just getting started," he sneered. The third bully moved to block the man's way. He crossed his arms and gave him a cruel smirk. "Maybe you need to learn some manners," he said, taunting the man. The whole gym seemed to go quiet. The noise of the weight clanking stopped and the air felt heavy and tense. Everyone in the gym turned to look, but no one stepped in to stop the bullies. They just watched, not wanting to get involved. Jason slowly stood up from where he was sitting and folded his towel calmly. He didn't rush and he didn't speak. He just took one slow step forward. The room seemed to change. It felt like the whole gym noticed Jason, even though the bullies didn't. A few people started whispering again, but now it wasn't about the black man or the bullies. The whispers were about Jason. Some people started to realize who he was. One of the bullies finally noticed Jason standing just a little too close. He turned his head and sized Jason up with a smirk. "Wait a minute, the bully said, his voice carrying across the gym. Isn't that the guy from the action movies? What's his name? Jason something? The other two bullies turned to look at Jason, their faces lighting up with surprise. Yeah, it's him, one of them said. I didn't know they let movie stars in here, another said, laughing. I thought you'd be too busy making movies. What are you doing in a real gym? The two bullies looked at each other, grinning. Go back to your movie sets, superstar, one of them said, waving Jason off, dismissing him. They laughed loudly, thinking Jason wouldn't do anything. To them, he was just a famous actor used to stunt doubles and cameras. He wasn't really tough. They thought he was harmless. Jason didn't react. He didn't say a word. He kept his eyes locked on the bullies. He didn't look angry or upset. His face didn't change at all. He just stood there, calm and steady. His stillness made everyone else in the gym uncomfortable. The bullies didn't know what to make of it. They kept laughing, but Jason stayed silent. The tallest bully, not understanding what was happening, decided to take things even further. He stepped closer to Jason, puffed out his chest, and smirked. Look, man, he said, I don't care who you are. Movie star or not, this isn't your problem. Without any warning, he shoved Jason hard in the shoulder. The gym went completely silent. Even the other bullies stopped laughing. They stood still, watching, waiting for Jason's reaction. Jason didn't flinch. He didn't move. He just straightened his shoulders, his eyes narrowing just a little, but not in anger. His focus was sharp, and it made everyone in the gym feel tense. The silence stretched, and the bullies, still thinking they were in control, waited for Jason to react. But Jason didn't move. He stayed still, calm and focused. The tension in the air was thick. Finally, the bullies decided to act. They didn't realize the shift in the gym, the change in the energy. Let's show him how it's done, one of them muttered. Suddenly, all three bullies lunged at Jason at the same time. One aimed straight at Jason's chest, trying to ram into him. The second swung a heavy arm toward Jason's face, sure that he would hit him. The third bully circled behind Jason, ready to grab him in a chokehold. But Jason was faster. As the first bully charged toward him, Jason stepped aside, letting the bully's momentum carry him straight into a weight rack with a loud crash. The bully groaned in pain as he hit the rack and fell to the floor. The second bully didn't have time to adjust. Jason grabbed his wrist mid-swing and twisted it sharply. There was a loud crack, followed by the bully's grunt of pain. Without missing a beat, Jason stepped into the space between them. He raised his elbow and drove it hard into the bully's ribs, knocking the wind out of him. The third bully came at Jason from behind, trying to grab him, but Jason moved quickly. He grabbed a kettlebell off the floor and swung it in a smooth motion. He slammed the kettlebell into the third bully's thigh, knocking him to the ground with a loud thud. The bully crumpled to his knees in pain. Jason didn't stop there. The first bully, still dazed, tried to get up and charge at Jason again. Jason ducked low, grabbed the man by his shirt collar, and used the bully's own weight against him. He sent him crashing over a bench, dumbbells clattering to the floor as the bully groaned and tried to get up. The whole gym froze. Everyone stood still, unable to look away from the scene unfolding before them. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Jason was moving quickly and efficiently like he was born to fight. The bullies, who had been so sure of themselves, were now lying on the floor, in pain and completely helpless. Jason wasn't showing off or making a big deal out of it. He just kept moving with precision, hitting his targets and making sure they couldn't fight back. The second bully, holding his wrist, staggered back to his feet. He looked shocked, unable to understand what had just happened. But Jason was already closing the distance. The bully didn't even have time to react before Jason drove a sharp knee into his stomach, making him double over in pain. Jason didn't hesitate. He didn't waste any time. The bullies were no longer laughing or mocking him. They were out of breath, in pain, and completely defeated. Jason, on the other hand, stood tall and calm, his movements controlled and strong. The bullies, once full of confidence, had been completely taken down. Everyone in the gym stood silently, watching as the bullies tried to recover. Some people had their phones out, recording the entire thing. But no one stepped in to help the bullies. No one needed to. Jason had handled it all himself. It wasn't a movie fight or some staged scene. It was real, and everyone in the gym knew it. Jason took a deep breath, relaxed, and looked around at the gym goers. No one said anything. They were all too stunned to speak. The bullies were groaning on the floor, too hurt to try anything else. Jason stood there, calm, steady, and unbothered by the whole thing. The crowd slowly started to relax, but no one forgot what they had just seen. Jason had shown them that sometimes real strength isn't about showing off or being loud. It's about knowing when to act, being calm, and doing what needs to be done. And in that gym, Jason had earned the respect of everyone there without saying a single word. Jason grabbed a resistance band hanging nearby and quickly looped it around the bully's arm. With a swift and brutal twist, he yanked it tight, pulling the bully face first down onto the mat. The third bully, seeing what happened to his friends, tried to back away quickly, moving toward the mirrors, his chest heaving with panic. Jason's eyes were locked on him, cold and unreadable. Without saying a word, Jason moved toward him, walking calmly. The bully swung his arms wildly, hoping to land a punch in desperation. But Jason was too fast. He caught the punch in midair, twisting sharply at the wrist, making the bully fall to his knees in pain. Jason's elbow hit him with precision, right against his temple. The bully crumpled onto the floor, dazed and weak, unable to fight back anymore. The first bully, the one who had been the most confident earlier, managed to crawl to his feet. His face was now red with anger and frustration. He grabbed a heavy metal barbell from the floor, swinging it in an attempt to strike Jason. But Jason didn't flinch. He stepped aside, moved in close, and grabbed the bar mid-swing. With one smooth, fluid motion, he yanked the bar away from the bully and swung it low, knocking the bully's legs out from under him. The bully hit the ground hard, gasping for air, his barbell clattering uselessly beside him. He lay there too hurt to get back up. The second bully, who was still tangled in the resistance band, struggled to free himself but couldn't move. He twisted and turned, trying to escape, but the more he moved, the tighter the band became. He groaned in frustration, unable to escape the trap Jason had set for him. Meanwhile, the third bully, still dizzy from the punch to his head, tried to crawl toward the exit. His hands scrambled across the floor as he pushed himself forward, desperate to get away. But Jason was too quick. He stepped in front of him, blocking his way with no effort. Without saying a word, Jason grabbed the bully by the collar and yanked him up. Then, without any warning, he punched the bully square in the jaw. The force of the punch knocked the bully down to the floor, motionless. He didn't move again. The gym fell silent. All three bullies who had once been so full of themselves were now lying on the floor, defeated, broken, and breathless. No one spoke. There was no laughter, no mockery, no taunting. The room was still. Every single person in that gym started, stunned by what they had just seen. What started as an act of bullying and intimidation had spiraled completely out of control. Now the bullies were lying there, powerless, and the person who had put them there remained calm and unaffected. Jason's breathing was steady, his face showing no sign of emotion. He didn't look tired or angry. He was simply calm. Jason glanced down at the fallen bullies, but he didn't say a word. He didn't need to. He stepped back, his muscles relaxed as if this had been just another part of his workout routine. He didn't feel the need for any applause or praise. The bullies groaned quietly on the floor, unable to move, now completely drained of the arrogance and confidence they had once had. The people in the gym, who had been frozen in shock moments before, began to murmur to each other, talking about what they had just witnessed. Jason had shown them something they hadn't seen before. He had shown them real strength. It wasn't about being loud or showing off. It wasn't about flexing muscles or shouting. It was about control, about knowing when to step in, when to act, and when to protect someone who needed help. The first bully, still lying on the floor and groaning, tried to get back up. His face was flushed with embarrassment and anger. Jason didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Get up," he said quietly, with an authority that left no room for argument. His tone wasn't angry, but it was firm. The bully struggled to stand, wobbling as he tried to find his balance. His eyes flicked nervously toward his friends, looking for any way out. The second and third bullies, bruised and breathless, managed to drag themselves up, slowly and painfully. They looked around, suddenly aware that every person in the gym was watching them. Phones were out and whispers spread like wildfire. They realized they had become the center of attention, but this time, it wasn't because of their bravado or loud voices. It was because they had been put in their place. One of the bullies swallowed hard. His voice cracked as he said, "We're sorry," barely able to get the words out. He could see Jason standing there, calm and unwavering, and something in him knew that there was no point in pretending anymore. Jason just shook his head once, a sharp motion, signaling that it wasn't enough. "Look at him," Jason said. "Say it properly." The bullies looked at Jason, their faces drained of the confidence and cockiness they had shown earlier. They now saw him differently, no longer a target for their mockery but someone strong and in control. Their voices cracked as they spoke. "We're sorry, man. We shouldn't have disrespected you." Their words were rushed, the once proud bullies now humbled and defeated. The crowd in the gym watched, completely stunned by the change in the atmosphere. The bullies, who had once thought they were the strongest in the room, now stood there embarrassed and humbled. The people in the gym didn't laugh. They didn't mock the bullies. They just quietly watched, knowing that something important had happened. Jason hadn't just fought back. He had taught them a lesson. Jason, still breathing calmly, nodded once. He didn't need any more words. He stepped forward, looked at the man he had helped, and said softly, "Thank you." His voice was quiet, but there was emotion in it. Years of holding back feelings suddenly let out in a simple, heartfelt thank you. The man's face softened, and for a moment, his eyes shone with gratitude. Jason nodded again as if to say, no need for words around them. He wasn't looking for praise. He didn't need anyone to cheer him on. He had done what was right, and that was enough. The gym goers who had stood frozen, watching, now whispered among themselves. "Did you see how fast he handled all three of them?" someone murmured. "Respect," said another. Jason didn't wait for the applause. He didn't care about the spotlight. He picked up his towel from the bench, threw it over his shoulder, and walked out of the gym as if nothing had happened. The crowd parted silently, letting him pass, no one daring to stop him or ask for anything. The doors closed behind him, and the gym slowly returned to its routine. But something had changed. It wasn't just the fight. It was the lesson that everyone had seen unfold in front of them. Jason had shown them that strength wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about shouting or demanding attention. Real strength was about knowing when to protect others, about standing up when no one else would. And that's what they would remember. Because in the end, the strongest people don't need to show off. They simply act when others won't. If you like this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.